Hi, everybody. Today's session is going to be about learning that Reiki isn't just a hands-on experience. And I'm going to share with you today the different ways that I've added even more exciting, let's just call modalities to be able to get deeper healing and connection to clients. And so I'll just give a little quick start on how I got started, which was very interesting. Um, let's see. So 16 years ago, I started doing henna tattoos at sober festivals, and I was having my first experience literally with hands-on people, and not even knowing yet that I had this ability to be able to do Reiki healing. And I had a woman who was really sick with some liver cancer, and she kept coming back to me to get henna tattoos and kept saying how good she felt after she had them. And when she first showed up, her skin was very yellow and she just really did not look well at all. And so the more she came, the more I noticed like the color was coming back in her face. And then pretty soon after the last one that she had, and she was bringing her little kids too, which I always love to do with little kids to do the henna. And but I watched her walk across this field to me to get her the one of the last tattoos she had with me. And she looked so different. It was like she was bouncing, like she was walking on air on the way over. And I still at that point didn't know what was going on, but I also noticed that I was feeling really drained at that point. And there was another person there doing Reiki. And I said, I'm just going to go over and get a Reiki session with this lady, and started explaining to her what was going on through this. And she basically was the first Reiki master that explained to me that I had this ability to do this healing. And that's what was happening with this woman. As she was getting more and more henna tattoos from me, she was able to pull that energy, and it was helping her. So the journey continued a little bit longer with the henna tattoos, and then I had that calling, and if you've taken Reiki classes or are a Reiki master or a teacher, whatever exposures you've had to Reiki, you get that calling when it comes, and it won't leave you alone. I see Mike shaking his head up and down, so I'm sure he's felt it too.
Yeah, I felt the calling. It's from a very young age. And Reiki is one of the many techniques I've learned, and just sort of incorporated it and integrated it into me and my work. But when you get the call to do this type of work, you can't ignore it, because it just keeps following you everywhere and knocking you on the shoulder.
Yeah, it won't leave you alone. That's what happened for me, for sure. And so I started doing the certification classes with my Reiki master teacher, and it's just been an amazing journey. And really what's happened, I learned the traditional Ushi Reiki, and but I kept feeling this draw to pull more and more things into my sessions, like I started using crystals, and then I have a tuning fork, and I use essential oils that I put on my hands. I don't put them directly on my clients, but I use them on my hands. And so there was that aroma part of it going on. And then I started bringing singing bowls into it. And I had at one point, I was like feeling really weird about, I know Japan, the original Reiki came from a Japanese instructor. And in the learning I've experienced about Japan, they're very traditional and they're very sacred, and everything's very honored through them. So I had a little bit of concern about bringing all of these other things kept coming into me, like to add this, add that, and I talked to my teacher about it, and she said, don't be worried about that, because it expands with your energy and what you need to, what needs to come into your session. So basically when I start, I clear the space long before the client shows up. And then I'll sit in meditation for myself for a while and just try to connect with my client's higher self and my higher self and see if I'm getting any messages coming in.
Because that's not something that you would do in traditional Reiki. Any Reiki session I've had, I've never heard them talk about going into meditation. I know one that I really resonated with, she was a yoga teacher. So her routine was to go into yoga in the morning, just kind of clear her body and go into some movement. And I expect there's some energetic aspect of it, of connecting into that realm, into spirituality. But it seems like what you're doing is very purposeful of expanding yourself and going into the energetic realm and bringing in sound frequency and colors and crystals, and really utilizing the energy to expand on this energy work.
Yeah, and that's what happens when I go into that meditation at first. And sometimes I don't feel called to do that with certain clients, but 90% of the time I will. And, like Khan was saying, it starts to bring in messages for me. It opens that connection, I start to see colors, I start to get messages. And when I originally first started, I wasn't getting that stuff, but I will say the classes that I took with William Michael Forbes has definitely helped to open everything up even more for me. For my sessions, just like blew wide open with this work of connecting with clairs, you know what I mean? So, and that just also, when I'm in that meditation, I'm setting the intention of what of the angels of my team that I would like to connect with during these sessions. Now, the other thing I've also learned is, and that took a little bit of time too, is I am not the one that's doing the healing. I am a channel, and the energy is coming through me to my clients. And it's kind of like a surrender thing where I had to learn to step back, so to say, not literally, but just to keep doing the healing part, but just knowing that it's not coming from me. It's not coming from me.
Yeah, we're not the ones who do the healing work. We are the ones who witness and hold a specific vibration that allows the person we are working with to step up into that new state of potential. Any healer who feels that they're doing the healing are actually coming from an ego place.
Yeah.
And actually, they might see some change in their clients, but they will definitely hit a plateau. So in my years, I've been doing this type of work for 22 years now. And for me, it's really just about stepping back and being a witness to the miracles that happened through the work. It has nothing to do with me. Again, I'm just that channel holding that vibration and holding that energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that really makes a difference here when we're talking about any person that, like you just said, working with Reiki, that you are doing the things that open up your body as a channel, that you are raising your frequency and vibration in your body and moving into a state of love. And by actively living and being in a state of love and not spending time in fear, you are raising your vibrations. Thus, what you're passing through is at a higher quality, and at least even filtering. Because even if you're working with a lower vibration entities of a person that isn't quite open, your vibrations are open, and anything that comes through you is being filtered so that it's at the highest possible energy for that person. It really just raises their vibrations. And I would expect that would be so, because we end up being like a filter.
Yeah, it's very true. I had a client who said, I'm going to give it a try. I'm letting you know right now, I don't believe in this. I think it's a bunch of crap, but I'm going to let you do it anyway. And she even came out of the session saying, nah, I still don't believe it. But hours later, she messaged me and said, I feel a difference. So, I always had this thought that somebody would have to be totally open for this to work, but that is not the case. That is not the case.
They just need that little piece of them that is willing to believe it can make a change.
Right.
Because it's more about their intention and their belief as to whether or not the change is facilitated through them. And in my experience, if they're in my treatment space and in this room with me, there's at least that little part of them that believes it can help. And that's all it takes. But if those people are so closed off and have their wall set up that this will not work at all, first off, they won't be in my room. And even if they did have a chance to have an experience, they would get no change because their
Right.
belief system is what's creating the outcome they experience.
That's right. That keeps that channel open for us to be able to bring that energy through to them. And but like you said, Mike, if somebody's here with me and they made that appointment to show up, or even saying, well, I don't know if I believe in it, there's that little spark that said something sent them our way. You know, the universe, I believe in that. The universe sends us their way, you know, and it's just, I like what you just touched upon, Con, too. You know, if I'm going into a session with worry or concern that somebody is not going to get what they need, or are they going to be judging me? That's going to have a different outcome. So that's another reason why I like to settle in, do a little meditation myself to get myself grounded and start bringing in that love vibration. You know what I mean? Because that brings my frequency up even more. And when my frequency is coming up higher and higher, who am I connecting to at that time? I'm connecting to my archangels. I'm bringing my frequency up into that realm where I'm able to then connect with the angels and who I work with to do these sessions. You know, that is huge. That is huge. Doc?
Do you, just as a query, really, prior to doing the session, do you ask your clients to take stock of where they are or how they feel, and give them a score, give themselves a score, say from 0 to 10, and then they then have a reference point after the session, after the effects start to kick in, to equally to use the same scale and say, well, has there been a difference? It's sort of shifting it, if it is possible, from a qualitative sort of scale, like guess I feel better, to a quantitative scale, which is a numerical sort of difference. And the only reason why I'm asking this is because sometimes it's useful to have that as a thermometer scale. Quite often we would use it with pain, where we would say to somebody, okay, if 10 is the worst pain you ever felt, or for example, if it's a lady, would say like childbirth, there's nothing more painful than that. On a scale of feeling no pain to 10, which is childbirth, where are you now? Then you've got a reference point. Do you ever use anything like that at all, or is it purely just a sort of a description of how they feel that you use as an outcome?
It's more of a description, Doc, is as opposed to a scale like that. Before I start the session, as they're getting ready to lay down the bed, I ask them if they have any intentions that they'd like to set for the session. Do they have any certain pains, or do they have any anything that they would like to address personally, you know, emotionally, physically, or mentally? And then at the end of the session, I have that time allotted to talk to them, to find out what they saw, what they heard, what they feel, what's the difference between when we started, you know. So basically we do it, but without a scale, and just to talk about what happened during the session for them.
I'll come back to that a bit later on, because it's something that's sort of kicking in my head at the moment, but I'll address this later after you finish. Okay.
Okay.
I do all of that, what you said, Doc. For me, because I started my career as a massage therapist, I was trained in that questioning and that documenting. So it's just become a very vital part of my practice. So for me, I keep client notes and I keep records of everything that they've talked about at the beginning. You can see behind me, there's 2 chairs. So we spend the first 10, 15 minutes just discussing what's going on. What are you experiencing? What brings you in to see me? I set that pain scale with them because it's always good, especially because a lot of times clients, after 3 or 4 sessions, I've had many times where they say, you know, I don't think I've seen any change. I'm not sure if this is working for me. But then when I refer back, I have notes that, you know, maybe say, you know, they get headaches 3 times a week. Their back pain's a 7 out of 10, referring down the leg. You know, they're sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night. And then as I start to refer back to those first session or 2 and ask them about it, and then they realize, oh, my back pain's gone. I'm only getting 1 headache a week. You know, I'm sleeping 6 full hours a night now. Because once somebody is out of pain or the symptoms disappear, they almost forget like they ever had them.
Mm-hmm.
So having that, and I do very much what Jenny does, and have them set the intention for the session. What is it they're hoping to get out of this?
Right.
Because with energy work, the most important thing is the intention of the client and the intention of the practitioner. And when those intentions align, that's where the miracles happen. It has nothing to do with technique, has everything to do with the intention.
Yep. It's true.
Okay. The last thing I just made, the reason why I'm asking this question is that if we need to shift this outside of the metaphysical arena into normal healthcare, measurements and records of a shift in before and after are going to be really important. And I'm just looking at it from a statistician, which is my previous job. I was an epidemiologist, and this was what I used to do, basically. But I'll come back to this later on, because I think there's an opportunity to be had with shifting this outside of the independent sort of sector, for want of a better word, into mainstream healthcare. But let's talk about that later.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. So I see we got a question from Marnie.
We do. And Marnie's asking, what does it mean when you're with a person who's in an extreme state, mental or physical, and if you find yourself feeling the same way as them? She goes, I know I'm empathetic, but was curious if there's also another way of energetic exchange that'll help them. And what do you think? And I know just from our practice, when we're talking about if there's other people in your space, and especially with your spouses and people in your family home, we are all energetically connected.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also not here to change them and force them to make changes.
Right.
But we are here to raise our own vibrations. So as you ultimately raise your vibrations in love and frequency and eat better and do everything better and start grounding and just improving your own body in every sense, you're going to improve the state of the energetic molecular structure and the physical environment around you. And that means your family. So as you just continue to work on yourself, and that's, I think that really is how we get to world peace. It's this movement that we work on ourselves, we love ourselves, and that infects the change around us. And the Heart Math Institute has done countless studies around this as well, that as they have changed your own energy and go into heart coherence and start loving yourself, you affect beings around you. Yep. And even we've done this in practice where you go into a crowded place and you just emanate love and you watch laughter start popping up and people just start being happy. So yes, Marty, you can definitely change the environment that way.
Yeah,
that's a great point, Con. And if you did resonate with that, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. The more likes, more subscribes we get, the more we can bring you this great information. And, myself, I was very much an overwhelmed empath for a long time, really affected by the energy of people around me. But what changed things for me was I'm a very visual person. So I started to see all this energy and all this stuff I was picking up from people were like an arrow coming from them pointed towards me. And because I was new and I was just learning about energy and what it was to be an empath, I felt I needed to bring that feeling into my body to understand it and to interpret it. But then I started to manifest the symptoms, take on the emotion, take on the pain and the feelings. And it starts to overwhelm you. And a lot of people, when they start to take on too much stuff that's not theirs, they become almost paralyzed and can't do anything. So for myself, I learned how just using my breath, and as I exhaled, I felt like I was pushing my energy and my presence outwards. So I actually, in reality, flipped that arrow around. And I push with my energy and fill the space with my vibration. And then use my energy very much like a radar or a sonar. So I can still pick up on that information from other people in my surroundings, but I don't have to own it and bring it into my physical reality. So It's a way for me, when I step into a space, I fill that room with my energy and my vibration. And again, still pick up what's going on, but don't bring it into my physical body. And for me as an empath, that was a huge game changer, and has every single one of my clients that I've taught that to has changed their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggled with that empath ever since I was a little kid. I would take on everybody's emotion. I spent most of my lifetime until probably about 6 years ago saying that I was a sponge, and I would just soak up everything and everybody around me and all of that energy. And a lot of that had to do with some of my past trauma that would make me do that, because I did have that connection with people that were traumatized, but I had to learn to keep it outside of myself, like Mike was saying. And for me, it first just started with putting this imaginary bubble around me of the color yellow. And when I did that, and I don't have to do it now, but in the beginning, it helped me to not absorb, because the color yellow will let my love out, but wouldn't let the emotional energy of other people come in. And now I don't have to do that anymore. Again, a lot of that for me has come from the classes that I took with William, to know I had a huge shift in knowing that I am always protected. And but when it comes to Reiki energy, I'm not going to take on other people's pain. And there's nothing but good that's going to come from doing Reiki healings. We don't take anything in and we don't give it. We just channel it.
Now, it sounds like that's one of your first practices, but would that be across all Reiki practitioners, that you are a portal and that's the first step of all Reiki? But now we're going beyond that, because you started talking about chakra colors, and you've also kind of told me about how you're using sound bowls and frequency and bringing in the angels and using angelic Reiki. So this isn't just the typical Reiki that you're doing. So what is really that angelic Reiki? And because that really does sound different and very high vibe in my experience. So can you tell more about the angelic Reiki part?
Yeah, well, for me, it's about connecting with the archangels and the spirit guides, and being able to have that connection outside, even when I'm in that state of transmuting, or not transmuting, but channeling energy. I have learned to have that connection with the angels, to be able to get messages while I'm doing Reiki. I'm not just channeling the Reiki. At the end of the session, I usually have messages for my clients. It's turned into a combination of, I don't want to call it a reading, but because I have learned how to open myself up to be, for my clairs to become stronger, I am getting messages of colors, and spirit guides will come through. And again, when I'm channeling through the angels, I don't always hear the messages either, because the angels are putting the direct energy into whatever needs to be cleared in my clients. So again, it's all that, just not just being the channel to the angels, you know what I mean? Because certain angels clear certain energies and illnesses. They work with illnesses and pains and emotional stuff. Most of my clients that are coming to me, I have some with arthritis. That seems to be a biggie. Not surprised up here in New England where it's cold, and it starts to show up for them with that. But a lot of my clients are coming to me with PTSD and trauma issues that they're holding. And when we go, and I experienced this myself through my lifetime, so it's no coincidence to me that as I open this practice and I begin to get more and more clients, this is most of my clients are women that are coming to me that have been exposed to that. And as we've learned and we've talked about here too, that emotional energies manifest themselves physically in our bodies when we hold them for a very long time. Right. And some of my clients too are holding energy and trauma from not just their generation, but their grandparents' generation, their parents, and so forth. So this is this is DNA holdings in their bodies. So,
that's known as epigenetics. So that is a study in science and medical science now on epigenetics and how trauma and issues are passed through the generational lines. And it's a lot of in the work I do is if a person's presenting a specific symptom or personality trait, a lot of times we have to go back generational to the actual source of where it started in the generational line and actually treat that person. And sometimes it can be 7-8 generations back. We need to go shift it at that level so it then filters through the whole genetic line.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common now that we're all moving into epigenetics, where as you work through all the different generations, and there's a lot of good Harvard studies on that they've and we've talked about that in the past. But getting back to the angelic Reiki part, I'm really curious to see, like, what do you actually do that's different and that's so enlightening here that we have between everyone else. I'm really curious to know about your process here. So what, because you talked about there's a preparation that you do beforehand that maybe a traditional Reiki 1, 2, or even a Reiki master wouldn't do.
Right.
So can you talk about your process of what you do beforehand that's different, that's just so much more than just hands on a body?
Yeah, well, it has to, for me, it has to do with, I also draw cards before I start with the angels and the masters on them to see who's going to show up. It's just another way for me to have a connection to see what angels are going to show up for the clients, or are they connected to me, or are they connected to their client? Because I'm working with both of our teams at the same time. I mean, my Reiki session room is just like packed full. There's no room to move in there with energy and spirits that are coming in. Also with their family spirits, their loved ones come in during the sessions, and I'm able to sense them and sometimes get messages for that too. But the difference for me, between just doing the Ushi Reiki as opposed to adding all of these other parts that I've added in over the years, is that traditional Reiki for me was just putting hands on or not touching. It doesn't matter. I always ask the client whether they want hands on or hands off, but it was basically not adding. It was doing a body scan, bringing my hands down through their body to see if I felt any shifts in my hands. But now when I'm adding these other things into it, I am getting more messages. I'm feeling more sensations in my hands. I'm able to pick up in places. I had a client who was having a shoulder issue, was also had a problem with something that was attached to her kidney. And I told her, I'm feeling a sensation around your neck. Then my neck starts hurting when I'm doing scans, and this is all coming from energies that are helping me. This isn't coming from me. That's one of the things I've learned, is when I get these sensations, or, like parts of my body will hurt, and then parts, or my hands will heat up or vibrate, or I'm felt drawn to go right to a certain part of their body. That's where the difference is for me, when the angels are speaking out to me on where this, pay attention to this. This is coming from this area.
Very cool.
And to learn to say that was another huge thing, to say something to my clients and not just say, well, is this something I'm hearing in my head that's not true? Because every time I get something, a message like that, it is true. It's truth.
So you're so before the Reiki session, you're meditating, you're clearing your space now, and you're drawing the angelic cards to see who you're working with. And is it at that point that you start feeling these things in your body?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes I do. Sometimes if I have that connection come through with their higher self and my higher self, I'll get certain messages that will say, pay attention to this. I had a client recently, I kept seeing the color yellow before she even showed up. And then it came up that was the chakra on her that needed the attention that day.
So then the messages that you're talking about, that you're channeling through, or you're connecting into their angels and guides, and who needs to come in, and then you're going, and then you're channeling these messages. Is that usually happening during the session, or is it before? Is it after, or anytime?
It can be before, most of it's during, not usually after. Sometimes there's connections made with whatever I hear and sense and see as to what they heard and during their session, because a lot of my clients are awakening themselves or are awake. And so they are seeing and hearing and sensing, and we spend a little bit of time talking about that after the Reiki session too.
So what do you do next?
So the next thing I would do is I have crystal tarot cards. It was really funny. My son gave them to me for Christmas, and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with these things. And I put them away in a drawer. And then I heard, start pulling them for your clients for their session, and there's a pack of them, and each, they're all through the colors, and they're all through the crystals, which are directly related to the different chakras and what they're connected with. And on back, we'll talk about what this crystal will do for them, where to put it, what it's for. And then it has a very little quip at the bottom of it that will say, this is for opening your clairs or having more psychic connection or whatever. So I sometimes will do that before the client arrives. And sometimes with some of my clients who are very in touch with their own clairs, I will have them pull the card. So it all depends. I get that push. Do I let them do it? Do I do it? And so then I've got certain crystals picked out that I'm going to use during the session. And then I have the client lay down on the bed. And most of my clients I've found to do a short 3 to 5 minute meditation guided, and mostly it's to ground them, to get them to come out of whatever they woke up with, whatever's happened, people, places, and things. They trigger us before we go to have appointments. And so I don't want them jumping up on the table and laying there, and they're still trying to calm down for the first 15 minutes of the session. So I've found that if I do a short meditation, guided meditation with them, and just get them to give their body permission to relax, to release, to let go, and then work down through the body and say, okay, let's start at your crown. Do you feel tension in your crown? Let that go. And we move through the chakra systems. Much like the meditations I've done here on Divine Soul Awakening, I'll start with that. And then at that point, they're usually dropping right in and are calm and settled in. And then I do a body scan. And I use my pendulum for that, to run through their chakra system, to go down through the body and see what's showing up with that.
So it sounds like grounding them or putting them through a guided meditation. I think that sounds like really so valuable, because you're already open and flowing, but if they're not ready to receive, putting them into that state sounds like a really great step to do.
Well, it helps that monkey mind. So many of us have gone through our lifetime with that monkey mind of 1,000 things running through our mind at one time. And then, I can speak for myself having ADD too, I'm like wired half the time. So having that guided meditation has helped me. So I know it's helping my clients to just settle in, let their mind stop. A lot of them say, I don't think I can do that, or I'm going to fall asleep. And I said, doesn't matter. You sleep, you just have a nice little rest, and we'll do the rest, And so it's, I love that time when I turn and look at their face, and you can just see all the wrinkles are gone in their face, and they're just so relaxed because they're like dropped right in, Yeah. And then, I just love that. And I can tell when somebody's really stressed out, like we get the crinkles in our brows and our jaws like this. And so that's where the meditation really helps my clients to just like stop, take a breath, relax, give your body permission to relax. And so
very cool. Yeah, I love that. Because you're using not only are you getting your own body calm in a meditation beforehand, but then you're bringing in the angels purposely with their angel cards, and then you're using the crystal tarots, and at that point you're pulling out certain the crystals that are coming out in the tarots, or are you also using your guidance to select which crystals that you should use?
Mostly, what I'm doing is going by the colors of the crystals, which are directly related to the chakra systems that are going to need 9 times out of 10 are the ones that are going to need clearing, opening back up, or slowing down for my clients. And so I usually pull a couple of those. And then as I start going through the session too, I have 2 shelves full of crystals in my room, where I do the sessions. And as I start working down through the body, then I'll pull more crystals and start putting them down through the body. And they're usually definitely, usually related to the chakra that needs clearing. Even though I'm putting them in certain different spots on the body, we have kind of a continuance of that color that comes in that needs to be cleared. Yeah. So then, as I go down and do through that, my pendulum's going to tell me right off what chakra is jammed up, and that I either call it muddied or jammed up, because that's the way I have explained it to my clients so that they can understand what's going on with their chakras. And
so what are you doing with your pendulum?
With my pendulum, I'm holding over the different spots on the body where the chakras are. I start at the head and work down through. Then I'll get guidance. Usually I start at the crown when I start with the hands on, but sometimes I'm led to start with the feet. Every once in a while I'll get guidance to start with the feet on a client, and we'll start from there and work that up. But 9 times out of 10, it's from the crown working down. And so I just start to work on those areas with the hands on, and I'm just channeling. I'm holding my hands over those spots. Am I feeling any different? Am I feeling heat? Am I feeling tingling? If I do feel usually if I feel a tingling sensation, then I'm asking my guides, why am I feeling this? What's going on with this? Because it's usually heat just tells me somebody's got some pain in an area. That's usually what I pick up on with the heat in my hands, but the tingling has to do with something else. There's another message there when I get that to come through. Yeah. So that, and then going down through there, and I find it's very interesting with what's going on in the world right now. Most of the chakras that with my clients that need to be cleared are the crown and the root. So again, divine coming down through the crown, root from Mother Earth coming up for grounding. I don't think I've had a client in the last year that hasn't needed root chakra grounding.
Do you find the people that are coming into you are a little bit more open?
Oh yeah. Definitely. Well, they're awakening, and I love the ones that show up and they say to me, this is going to sound really weird, Jenny, but I got to share this with you. And I'm like, here we go. I love it. Here we go. And then I just tell them, you can share anything with me because nothing sounds strange to me. I felt like I've been strange for years. So when you tell me these things, and then I just look and I smile and I'm able to say, okay, you're all right. You're not losing your mind, because that's how it kind of started with me, with the intuition coming in and me thinking I was losing my marbles. But I had the courage to share it with somebody who was already awakened, and she's, smiled at me and said, you're okay, and I have that opportunity with my clients because, again, it's not just about hands-on. There's so much that happens in my Reiki sessions.
Yeah. And I think we've just only touched on a few of them, because now we've already talked about the meditations for yourself and your clients. You're talking about the pulling the cards and connecting with guides and angels. And you're using that angelic healing that you're connecting into. You're talking about the tarots, the crystals. You've talked about using your pendulum and over the chakras, but there's still more as well that you're using as well, because I think there's
and I don't always use them all. I don't always use them at each client either. It's what I feel called to use. That's what's kind of cool with having all these different things. The other things I use is an Om tuning fork. And after I've gone through the chakras, I start at the feet and I start going up through the body with this Om tuning fork, holding it on the different spots on the body until the vibration stops. And that purpose of that in my sessions is to connect them with universal oneness through their body. Again, it's that flow. It's about that flow that we've learned and talked about. Our chakras need to be flowing. We need to have that, what is it? Torah flow.
Taurus.
I never can remember the name of that.
The toroidal field or a Taurus.
Toroidal.
Yeah, or a Taurus.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. And to get that flow going up through their body. So that tuning fork. And it's every time I go to use it too, because usually everybody's like dropped right in and I think I'm going to scare the crap out of them when I touch them with this tuning fork. 9 times out of 10, they don't even move. But a lot of people really like that energy coming up through them. And I'll also tend to stay around a certain spot. Like if somebody has arthritis in their knees or their hip or their shoulders, I'll do different points with the tuning fork around that specific joint or whatever that's giving them problems.
Yeah, because we know frequency and the type of frequency that you're using is really so important as we're getting into numbers and the frequencies that you use. Now, are you using a specific tuning fork for this, or do you have a range of tuning forks that you might work with?
Nope, I just have that one. I can't reach it, but it is on the table. And it is for the Om sound, the Om frequency, which is it's all universal oneness with the Om. It's when we meditate and we say Om, that's the sound and the frequency that runs through and the vibration. So when I touch it to the client, they're getting the vibration and able to connect with that. Doc, you're muted.
Thank you. Those dogs are being a bit excited. If people are in the process of ascending, as I understand it, their vibrations are raising. Therefore, the fundamental frequency, the Om, does that shift for the individual, or is that a constant?
It seems to be a constant with my clients. Yeah. And I see that Marty's asking if the Om tuning fork could be something we can use ourselves. Absolutely.
You don't even need the tuning fork. All you need to do is chant Om.
Right.
That itself will bring that vibration in.
Yeah.
But if you have a tuning fork, you can use it.
Yeah, and you don't even have to say Om. You can just hum.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
And it's that ending part that you're going to hold and sustain that creates the internal vibrations within your system. And that is the frequency of Om is 432. So you're hitting that 432 frequency which is the baseline of that creation of everything. Yeah.
That actually was a question I was going to ask, because I've seen yoga teachers teach Om as about 4 parts for that whole process. And they say and it's that last bit from what I gather from what you're saying, Khan. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing like a E, O, so you're getting the vibrations more in your head. You're stimulating. You can actually use your sound to move it throughout the body, but you're actually working through all various frequencies. So you can do the E. So the E is very mid-range. Om is almost complete, but ultimately you want to sustain it in not only your nasal passage in your face, but also around your belly. You're going to feel it in your abdomen and your nose. And when you sustain both of them together, but the trick is to have it with intention. So as you hold an intention with that energy, you are able to sustain something with the humming. So I guess my question goes back to Jenny, is that, do you have a certain intention that you're using when you're using the tuning fork?
Just again, to align that vibration up through the body from root to crown, from Mother Earth back up to universal oneness, source energy, whatever you believe.
Right.
That's my purpose when I use that tuning fork, coming back up through. And that's just before the end of the session, where I will then go into first I'll check their auric field to make sure there's no holes in their auric field, and maybe go back and work in a certain section with the angels to get that closed up. And then it's on to the singing bowls, and that's how I end my session, with a like 5 to 10 minutes of singing bowls.
Wow.
It's very interesting we're talking about vibrations in the abdomen, because the yoga teacher who I heard teaching this said that in the process of going through the sound, you're shifting the vibrations from an abdominal to a chest, to a throat, to a mouth. And it's that shift of the vibrations all the way up, which is where you can experience, shall we say, the difference. But as you know, when you finish with the vibration in your mouth, certainly for me, it sets off fireworks in my head, because I can feel everything, my jaw, my teeth, everything sort of vibrating. But it just depends, I guess, on the frequency and what suits you at that point in time.
I do that for a lot of meditations when I'm doing group meditations. That's more kind of building something up to a little bit something more to really connect with higher realms of expansion. So I want people to experience expanding their awareness. Oftentimes we'll spend it the first 5-10 minutes just with some sort of sound vibration, but also you really want to enhance it, you just add in the humming. And if you have that intention of connecting and opening up yourself, because when I connect into whatever guide that I'm going to use to channel the meditation, I'll just do that humming with that grounding time. And I allow my crown to just open it, and it connects me at a very much different level, because you're also stimulating the pineal gland and the pituitary gland within the middle of your brain. And that in itself is connected into your third eye and the pineal gland, which is your crown. So that creates a complete triangle opening between passing through and above. So you just completely open up your awareness with using those sound vibrations.
And so one last question, Mike, is that the same pitch that you find sort of triggers things when you play your didgeridoo? Because it always seems to me that the Tibetan, the long Tibetan horns, Om sound, some of the singing bowls, and possibly even the didgeridoo are basically modulating the same frequency and the same pitch. But I don't know enough about didgeridoos.
Well, the any sound frequency has that underlying Om resonance to it. It does come through the didgeridoos, and each of my didgeridoos is tuned to a different note. So it'll play you'll still get that resonance of the Om, but at a different pitch, whether it's tuned to an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? But the base frequency of all sound is Om.
Okay, thank you.
So then your sound bowls that you're using, does that have a certain frequency? Do you know what it is? And how are you using your sound bowls?
Well, the sound bowls that I have are directly correlate with the different chakras, and each one has a different tone, a different frequency when it's played. And somebody asked me this the other day, if I ever took lessons, and I said no, because it's not me playing the bowls. I'm simply a channel. I don't know what's going to come out. Every time I play them for a client, they're different. And sometimes I don't even know what I played.
Yeah, the crystal bowls are specifically tuned to the different musical notes.
Yeah.
And then in the last 100 years is when we as humanity have associated those different musical notes with the different chakras. So that's actually knowledge that's not that old. It's only about 100 years old that we've associated the musical notes with the chakras.
Yeah. Yeah. So and each bowl has a different thickness and a different size, and that's what makes it create the different sounds.
Yeah. Well, and it's with the different bowls, especially when you get the different sizes, because the crystal bowls come as small as an 8-inch diameter, and they come up to 20-inch. So it's just like playing a different octave on a piano. Playing a C note in the different octaves produces a different sound, but they're all a C note, right? So that's the same thing that happens as the bowls get bigger. We're just changing the octave.
Yeah. And I actually met a lady at a fair a few months back that has a giant bowl, and you stand in it, and she does grounding through that
Yeah.
crystal bowl. That was quite an experience. I had never done that before.
Yeah, I have a big bowl that people can stand in.
Do you?
Not
Yeah.
crystal though. I'd be
No.
scared to let people step in a crystal bowl.
Yeah, no kidding.
So now you have you're creating this full environment, and it very much is different from any Reiki that I've heard of. It is very guided in a sense that you're just allowing whatever to come through. The tools that you're going to use is very much open. Now, is there a difference? Because Rachel brings up a great question. That is there a difference between having a remote in-person session compared remote versus in-person? So I think with an in-person, you're getting a lot of the reverb from the sound compared to remote. Do you notice anything? And she's asking if that's either for your side or even on the practitioner side. Do you notice those?
Now, that's a good question for you. Con and Rachel have both had remote sessions with me. I have not had a remote session myself. So in order, does it sound, I'm going to assume that it sounds a little bit different, but if we're talking about energy moving, it doesn't matter whether that person's with me or not with me. And
Correct.
that's how we're able to do these remote sessions with our clients.
Even when the person's laying on the table in front of you and you're not touching them, you're technically doing a distance session.
Right.
And the concept of distance, whether it's a couple inches or a couple thousand kilometers, it's only in the mind that creates the limitation. Right. There is zero difference to an in-person or a distance session. The only difference would be, as Con said, if you're playing the bowls, unless the person's wearing headphones, they might not get the same auditory sensation. But when the bowls are played during a distance session, the energy is still filtered through us as a practitioner to the person. So they're still getting the benefits. They're just not getting the auditory stimulation of it.
Right. And that's why I have my clients wear headphones on remote sessions, whether they're just earbuds or whatever. It's definitely, that's why we always say when we're going to do something here, bring your earbuds, bring your headphones to connect to, because you're going to get more of a connection through that way.
I know
the
Reiki sessions that I've had in person, they're just traditional Reiki sessions by a Reiki master, compared to these remote angelic sessions that I've had with Jenny. It is noticeably different that I've had it. And Rachel concurs that as well, that she said was the most powerful Reiki session that she's ever had when she had her remote session with Jenny. So yeah, I would concur with that. Now I kind of wonder if it's also because Rachel's quite open, I'm quite open as well, and you're quite, like, we're all quite open in order to receive, and even the channeling that we do, and the allowing that we have in moving with energy. So we're all quite experienced with energy. And I wonder if that makes a difference as well, that as you clean your own body and make that as an ongoing practice, and I can say that it'd probably be the same with all of us, that as we are better, as you open up, I guess my question, this is for Mike and Jenny, as the two of you have cleared your own systems and opened yourselves up, I'd assume you've just become better administrators or facilitators to allow this energy to happen. Would you say so, Mike?
Well, for me, it's I can only take a client as far as I've gone on my journey. Mm-hmm. So back when I lived close to UConn and you were coming to see me, there were moments during those times where I was going through some pretty tough stuff, and I had actually stopped doing my personal work. And I know you probably felt that the quality of my sessions changed. They actually lowered a little bit. And then as I started to take ownership and started to work through my stuff and raise my vibration back up, then the sessions just accelerated well beyond. So it is very vital for us as a practitioner to stay on our path again,
Mhm.
because I can only take somebody as far as I've gone. And once they are actually matching my frequency, I'm no longer of service to them.
Right.
And, I've taken a lot of my clients to that place where they're vibrating at that same frequency as me. Then, I basically have to tell them, it's time for us to find you someone who's vibrating in a little bit of a different vibration than me, so that you can continue this growth, or educate them in a way to do it themselves.
And I think that it goes back to self-growth as well,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
with my Tai Chi teachers, my martial art teachers, these are great masters, but their own teachers had passed away years ago, who were masters, but they still tune into their energy. And when they go into meditation, they're typically meditating for like 8 hours at a time as they connect with their teachers, and they're still getting scolded and they're still getting their lessons through their teachers, but mostly it's through their own practice. That they're expanding their own consciousness and their own abilities through meditations and expansion. And I find that myself, as my body opens up more, the guided meditations that I put through my groups, they just get really open and really change. And I know that's compared to like when I have a meditation through William Michael Forbes. William is so much more open and clear channel than I am. So I really feel his meditations, but I
Mhm.
also am able to share that out to me. And some people just can't handle his meditations, right? They're just not ready. It's just so foreign for the body. So it almost seems like we need this mix of people all around us in order to go through that stepping stone of allowing our molecular structure to change through this bit by bit. Yeah.
I definitely know the more clearing that's my clock. The more clearing that I've done for myself and over these years, the more connected I am to source, the more connected I am to the angelic realm, and it just has opened up. That's where all this information came to keep adding these parts to the Reiki sessions. I didn't come up with this on my own.
Well,
I
I'll
know
challenge you, Jenny. I don't think you're actually doing Reiki anymore. I think you
probably.
have well evolved well beyond the realm and the limitations of Reiki, and you are stepping into Jenny, and you are presenting and doing what you need to do as Jenny to be of service to people. If you continue to hold into that realm of I'm a Reiki practitioner, you are actually creating a box and a limitation.
True.
And you have stepped well beyond that by trusting yourself and utilizing the gifts and skills that are available to you. And my feeling, okay, this is just totally my interpretation, Reiki has just become the blanket term for energy work.
Mm.
Reiki has lost its true essence because it has now just enveloped everything. And that itself creates that limitation within us. So it's when we step away from those labels of technique and just say I'm here to create and facilitate a change, that is where the miracles start to unfold.
Yeah, and that's what's happening, Mike. That totally resonates. Like the Reiki part was the beginning. It was the stepping stone of where I jumped off into all these other techniques that have been working, I see it. I see the miracles happening through these other techniques.
Yeah, because Reiki itself is the Usi method is Reiki. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
Any of this holy fire Reiki, this angelic Reiki, isn't Reiki. It is not the root fundamental vibration of what Reiki is. It
Yeah.
is somebody's own interpretation of Reiki and adding in their own flavor to it. So it's
Yeah.
not technically Reiki anymore. And to be honest, the only person who ever truly did Reiki was Master Usi,
Right.
because he created it. But he taught the techniques to other people who then embody it and make it uniquely theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true when you look at the history of what's happened since he started. Doc, you're muted.
Thanks again. There's a two-part question. if somebody is unconscious, is it possible to undertake Reiki on them? And the second question, is it ethical without their consent?
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, they can still
Yep.
receive the benefits of it, but it is extremely unethical to impose this type of work onto somebody without their permission.
Yep.
Unless you have whoever's in charge of their medical decision making grant you permission, you don't do it, because that is breaking an ethical barrier.
Right.
Because if I tune into somebody's energy and I start to pick up on things about them that they didn't want anybody to know, I have definitely crossed the line.
Exactly.
So for myself, I will not do a session on anybody unless I have a verbal confirmation from them and permission to do the session.
Or their medical, what's the word I'm looking for?
Guardian.
Guardian. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we
The
don't
next question then.
we don't do Reiki on somebody unless they give us permission or any
Okay.
healing.
And next question is, what about a baby in utero?
I've treated many babies in utero, and I ask permission first from the mother. Is it okay for me to do this? And if here in Canada, if you are 18 and under, if you're 17 and younger, your parents have medical say in everything.
Right.
So technically in utero, parents have full medical decision making for the people. So if the parent gives me permission, then yes, I will do a session. But in saying that, if a client, because I do treat a lot of teenagers, if I find they are of sound mind and they can understand what it is I'm doing and they have the ability to make their own decision, I will ask permission from them directly.
So, Mike, I have a question for you because I haven't experienced this. Have you ever had a connection where the mother has said yes, but you connected to the higher soul of the baby and the baby is saying no? Have you ever had that experience?
I have a different belief on the whole higher soul and asking permission from the higher soul. I've never had that happen personally. So no. So I don't really know.
It was a question that just popped into my head. Like, what if the baby says no? You know what I mean? Because
it's, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of practitioners out there who won't get verbal permission, but they'll check in with somebody's higher self and say, oh, your higher self gave me permission to do the session. I did it. And to me, that is extremely unethical.
That's
because just like with a pendulum, I can make the pendulum move in any direction I want. Therefore, I can influence the answer that the pendulum is giving. So if everything inside of me feels like I'm the one that's going to fix this person, doesn't matter what their energy is saying, I will always come up with a yes. So I can feel empowered and I can feel like I'm doing something. So I will not ever do a session unless I get verbal confirmation.
Yeah.
And that's, that could just be from my ethical training in my massage therapy and how steeped it was in informed consent. And that's something I have carried through with me, even though I don't practice massage therapy anymore.
Yeah.
I think it also goes back into that feeling, because anytime anyone's asked for message or guidance, and it's usually doing with like a partner or spouse, even a child, when you tune in, there is also a permission and a comfortableness. So even if you do get that answer, there's still that feeling of like, I'm not supposed to tell you or do this. And it goes still with sharing energy clearing as well. If you're going to be doing energy clearing and going into a physical body or any type of vessel, then permission is definitely needed to enter into another body. Typically, if you're asking for answers or questions, many a times we'll get the answers, but it's not necessarily for us to pass it on and share it. And that's where our own privacy responsibility comes in, that we need to be respectful of just, if I say this, I could actually change their energetic thinking. That you could say, well, I don't really feel their energy is good for you. You can actually change the trajectory because I don't know. This is not for me to say that this is going to be good or bad for them, but ultimately we have to be very careful about that. And typically there's that feeling that we'll get within ourselves, like this doesn't feel right. It's like,
Right.
and even though somebody might guilt you or try to guilt you, it's like, I'm sorry, like I'm not being allowed to share this. And if we do share that, we could actually hurt ourselves. And that'd be something that we had to transmute and work on and release. So we got to be very respectful of this realm that we really don't understand, that we are just really playing with and experimenting on that energetic realm. We don't know.
And some people need the conditions and their symptoms. They're actually learning life lessons through their pain or their disease or their struggles. And if we impose us trying to fix it for them, then we're actually, like Con said, changing the trajectory of their experience and potentially preventing them from actually learning what it is they're meant to learn through that experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're meant to be the trigger as well.
Very much. I am the trigger for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm triggering a few right now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Doc.
Just again, another sort of an aside. If this is all about energy, because it's all about energy, and if you have a particular, how shall I put it, milieu within a given house or a household because of the individuals that are in them, can you do a group session for all people at one go, or do they individually need to have it done, subject to their consent, of course, to help address or clear or whatever it is that they seek?
No, we can do both. Yeah, we can do both. When, I'm going to do a short session here in a group healing, in a sound healing before we end today. So it's going to hit everybody, and what's going to come to the person is their individual and what they need from it.
If we look at a group as like a matrix, and every person in that group holds their position and holds a specific vibration and energy for that group dynamic. So sometimes we need to shift the energy and the dynamic between certain members of that group, and maybe someone has assumed a leadership role, but they aren't the one who's meant to be the leader, right? So we can shift that energy around, but then we also can treat each individual for their own perception of what's going on, because that's where a lot of conflicts come in groups. Are my perception and your perception are very different, and we both think we're right. So a lot of times because I do treat a lot of animals, and to be honest, to get the best results with animals, I need to treat the humans, because the animals are just embodying the humans' problems.
Yeah, very true.
We get that a lot with the dogs that we watch, and Rita takes care of a lot of dogs and works with the pendulum and takes care of it, which is actually going to be our next show, that working with homeopathics and treating your pets. But I'll tune into a lot of the people that she's just, what do you get that's going on? And most of the times when these pets are going through these very real human diseases, it's that they're transmuting this energy. And sometimes, they're trying to do healing on their cat, and they don't want their cat or dog to pass, but it's the same. Well, this is their job. Their job is to transmute that energy and allow them to pass now, to take that energy that they've released from you, to take it outside and dispose of it. This is their job, to be here in these short times. And that's why these animals have shorter lifespans, especially the domestic animals that are in our lives. It is a specific purpose that they're here for.
Yeah, dogs tend to take on our physical ailments, and cats tend to deal more so with our emotional and spiritual aspects.
Yeah.
We do got a question here from Hushna. Sorry, Doc, am I cutting you off again?
No, that was exactly the same thing I was going to say. There are a few questions that have popped up. I'll hand over to you.
Go ahead, Doc. Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Well, I mean, it was just I've been sort of starring a few of the questions. If I go, I'll go to questions first.
Yeah, we got one on the screen from Hushna.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble focusing at the moment. So, how can I check our auras for holes? Over to you, Mike and Jenny.
Yeah, Mike, why don't you go ahead on this? This is fairly something new for me, is checking for auras with my client, holes in their auras.
Depends on sort of. Sorry, I had to put my glasses on so I can read the questions. It's to me, if you believe you can have an aura, a hole in your aura, you will create the holes in your auras. This is all about a belief system. So for me, I choose to not believe that you can have holes in your auras. Therefore, I don't see them. I don't treat them. And they aren't an issue that I do experience. But for anything as far as energy, if you are able to sense and feel your energetic space around you, because I will answer this question. So you push your presence outwards from your physical body and get a sense of whatever it is you deem or call your aura, and then just start to sense and feel, is there a place in my aura that I'm being drawn to? Is there an awareness I'm being brought, more towards the back of my head, or is it more over my heart? In my experience in the past, when I sort of worked with this idea of holes, it wasn't in auras. I worked with something in Chinese medicine called your Wei Qi, which is a protective energy shield that sits just over our body. Typically, the holes would appear in areas where people have pain, chronic pain, or disease or issues. So that would be an idea, Hushna, is to look at sort of what are the symptoms you are presenting, and then project your awareness outward from those areas where the pain and disease are. And you will probably sense or feel the hole if you choose to believe they're there.
That's great.
And Suzanne's saying she missed a lot. You can go back and watch a replay too. This is going to be posted up to be able to see again.
We have a couple of other questions from existing Reiki practitioners. I'm going to pull over to Jackie Smallwoods first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to the screen. Again, it's about picking up where she had left off. Any responses to that?
Yeah, and she says, just for our people that are listening and not actually watching the screen, her question is, I practiced Reiki a few years ago, but I didn't continue. My question is, am I able to go back to where I left off, or do I need to take the courses again?
If you were attuned to your Reiki, then you don't need to go back.
Yeah, it's a part of who you are.
Right.
It's a part of who you are. You might notice you might be a little rusty when you start up again, but you are that energy now. Will forever be a part of who you are.
Right.
You can take the course if you want as a just sort of to a refresher, but once you are attuned to these higher frequencies, you are those higher frequencies.
Right. And you can always go back and read your documents or your manuals or whatever you got when you took those classes for a refresher if you feel like you're a little rusty, like Mike was talking about, but you don't need to go back and do it again. That's what the attunement's all about.
We got time for a couple of quick questions here, and so Jenny can do her thing. So Doc, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yep, sure. Suzanne Gabriel brought up a similar question. I have my Reiki level 2 with my attunement done, but it doesn't seem to be working for me. Should I keep reviewing it? Thought it would help as I developed severe sciatica, painful.
Well, I think this is just part of your, Reiki is one aspect of it as a tool, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done within yourself. And we need to know that the severe sciatica that you developed is also something for you to learn, to look at it, to actually speak to it, to release it, using emotional release, and there's many different ways of releasing the emotions and the energy that are contained within that, whether it is Reiki or other type of energy work, doing some sort of meditations, emotional work. And these are things that we all do in our own practices for our groups and clients. So it really is to stick with what resonates with you and feel where you are guided in order to address this. And always to remember, which is a lesson that I need to relearn myself, was that not to force it, that you want to force that healing, but to let go and surrender that. If you know within your heart that you will heal, then let go to the when and the how and just allow it to happen. And that is very much easier said than done. And, I've been saying it and not necessarily doing it, and now doing it for over a decade now. So it's definitely a learning process for myself.
Well, and the Reiki attunement isn't the healing.
Right.
The Reiki attunement is about opening you up to higher energies. So if you are expecting an instantaneous change of your symptoms because you had an attunement, you're most likely not going to receive that. So there are probably a lot of other much deeper aspects that have manifested as the sciatic pain that you aren't aware of or aren't recognizing.
Right.
So for me, in my experience, most people with sciatic pain, it's usually because the foundations and structure that their life was built upon are being challenged. Our low back and our sacrum and the area where the sciatic nerve passes from our spine into our leg is all about foundations and structures. So take a look at your life. What's going on in your life? Where do you feel unbalanced, uncertain, or uneasy? What's shaking your life apart? And what is it about how you were raised and the belief systems you developed as a kid that don't serve you anymore? And actually, by trying to hold on to that and instability through the low back and the sacrum area, which is now manifesting as a sciatic pain.
I see somebody else was asking about anxiety and whether Reiki is good for anxiety, and Reiki is awesome for anxiety. It's a really, really good modality to use for sure. I think it was Franco that asked about that.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have one very quick last question from Michelle. Tana. If there's another energy occupying a person, I shouldn't touch them or not even speak to them speak much with them. And this is a question from Michelle.
Well, this goes back to what Mike was saying about, it's, we both talked about that you're not necessarily looking to heal someone else, or even if there is an energy within them, but not to be afraid of that energy within your own environment. I know I'm in a constant state of love, that nothing can interfere with my energetic field. I don't worry about other beings. And this is like, we've all kind of said it in a different way. So when you are in a high vibrational state, and that is the goal of this, that's where our practice comes into, is constantly moving at that high vibration, so that no matter what comes at you, even with something negative or life-threatening or something very serious, that you don't look at it at the negative side. You look at that, the lessons that are there for you, that it's a gift, that there's something positive. So you keep your vibrations very high. So when you're looking at somebody else that might have an attachment or an energy or something about them that is very hard to approach, then you don't necessarily have to worry about that, oh, I can't speak to you. If you want to speak to them, you feel guided to speak with them, then speak with them. If you feel that you need to keep yourself away from them, then keep yourself away. Mm-hmm. It really is staying within your own energy, but not be afraid of it, because our vibrations are always as high as possible. And that is the goal, is raising your vibrations in everything, in all aspects. So yeah, fear is it's not something I choose. I choose love, not fear. And it's a choice. Everything is a choice, love or fear, right? I choose love. Mm-hmm.
And if we're in that love vibration, the fear doesn't come in, because they can't be together at the same time.
Yeah. Cannot occupy the same space.
Right. That's right.
Choice. So Jenny, we got enough time here to get in a quick group healing.
Yep.
So we're going to pass it over to Jenny, everybody. And why don't you tell us what you're going to do for us and what we need to do?
Yeah. So if you want to get your headphones on, earbuds, or whatever, the first thing I'm going to do is start with a very, very short guided meditation to get us all grounded and into the space that we want to be in to start this group healing. So I'll just have everybody close their eyes and take a nice deep breath in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth. And as you're doing this, give your body permission to relax, to release, and to let go. And take another nice deep breath in through your nose. And as you're blowing it out through your mouth, let go of everything that you woke up with, people, places, and things that might have your mind going. And we'll take one more nice deep breath in through the nose and blow it out through your mouth. And as you do this, start to picture your roots going deep into the earth, going down through the snow, down through the grass, down through the gravel and the stone, through the underground waters, and moving deeper and deeper. Your roots are spreading wider and wider, reaching down into the middle of the earth where the crystals are. And in this space, you see beautiful colors of reds, greens, yellows, blues, orange, purple, white, and whatever you feel drawn to wrap your roots around, whether it's all the colors or one special color for you today. Wrap your roots around these crystals and begin to pull this energy from Mother Earth and these crystals up through the bottom of your feet, through your shins and your calves, up through your hips, your belly, and into your heart space, where a light begins to go brighter and brighter, filling the space, beginning to fill the space around your heart, moving out into the space that you're sitting in. And as this light gets brighter and brighter, we bring in a pillar from above, from universal oneness, source energy, God, whatever you believe in, a beautiful white crystalline light coming down through a pillar into your crown chakra at the top of your head. And this light begins to move down through your third eye, down through your throat chakra, and into your heart space where it mixes and mingles with Mother Earth. And as these two energies begin to mix and mingle with each other, you feel your body continuing to relax, to release, and to let go. And just keep breathing in a natural, easy pace. And I will move through the chakras, allowing the energy of the angels to come through me to clear these for each and every one of you. And when you're ready, gently begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes, bringing yourself back to the here and now with any messages that you need to keep with you today. Allowing the beautiful light of the angelic realm to come with you as you move forward into your day. And when you're ready, gently, very gently, open your eyes and welcome back.
Oh, that was lovely.
Thank you,
I
Jenny.
hope, oh, you're welcome. I hope the bowls sounded okay.
You did. Yeah.
Good.
It sounded
They
good.
did, yes.
Yep. Definitely use like a full session. I feel like I need more.
Can never get enough, right?
No, it was a tease. That was a teaser.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody, so much. It's-
Well, that was an absolute beautiful session, Jenny. I didn't really realize how much there was different. And like Mike said, it's moved well beyond the label of Reiki. It's no longer a label. It is energy work that you're doing with. And it is something that I guess all Reiki practitioners need to hear. For those of you that want to experience a full Reiki healing, you can go check out Jenny's YouTube channel. And she has one that we did last year on her website that we're going to post on the side here on our end board. I'm just going to post up Jenny's website as well. You can also book a remote session with Jenny at heavenlyheartreiki.com. And if you're looking for distance energy healing, also check out Mike's website at energychihealing.ca for any remote session work as well. And we're going to have one more video, and we'll post up as well the full season 2 episode 17 of Divine Soul Awakening, where Jenny talked about this and walked us through the full session. So with that, thank you everyone for being here and joining us. And please give us a like if this resonated with you. Much love, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.